So at last I was ready to give Everest a crack. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first of all, we fly to Nepal in the capital city, Kathmandu. From there, we take a small plane flight to the mountain village of Lukla. Lukla is the gateway to the Everest Valley. And for the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're on foot, spending 10 to 11 days slowly trekking into base camp, taking our time to allow our bodies time to acclimatise to the chronic lack of oxygen at altitude. We finally arrive in base camp itself at an altitude of 5,300 metres. So more than 5 vertical kilometres up into the Earth's atmosphere. That is in itself a huge achievement, and for most people that's the end goal. But for us as mountaineers, it's just the starting point. We're going to turn our attention higher up the mountain. Firstly, passing through what is probably the most dangerous feature of Everest. It's called the icefall, a glacier which cascades down the side. Once we've passed through the icefall, we establish our first camp at 6,100 metres. Our second camp is at 6,500 metres, still 2.5 vertical kilometres below the summit of Everest, up on our left there. But we're actually going to divert out to the right now, to this mountain on the right. It's called Lhotse. It's the 4th highest peak in the world, and we have to climb that first of all. Halfway up Lhotse, we put our third camp at an altitude of 7,300 metres, and then our highest camp on the mountain, Camp 4, at 8,000 metres. So we call this the death zone, 8,000 metres. There's a third the amount of oxygen that there is at sea level. A very difficult environment and a true edge environment. This is the highest camp on the mountain. Looking to the left, the summit of Lhotse. Panning back around to the right, we can see the final summit ridge of Mount Everest. That right-hand skyline ridge, it's the southeast ridge of Mount Everest, following the original route that Sir Ed Hillary and Tenzing Norgay took in 1953 when they were the first people to successfully climb to the top. Passing over the south summit, which is a minor summit, before finally making it to the main summit of Everest at 8,850 metres. So almost 9 vertical kilometres up into the Earth's atmosphere. Standing on the summit of Everest, there is a quarter the amount of oxygen that there is here at sea level. So if we as an audience were lifted up to that altitude right now, we would be gasping for air straight away. We would be unconscious within 10 to 15 minutes and die not long after that. So how on earth do we actually go up this high? Well, what we need to do is we acclimatise lower down the mountain. We spend 5 to 6 weeks getting our bodies used to that lack of oxygen. From base camp, we'll pass through the icefall up to Camp 1 for the day, drop back down to base camp and rest for another day. Then it's on back up through the icefall again to Camp 1 for a night. We drop back down through the icefall and rest. Back up through the icefall, onto Camp 1 for a night, Camp 2 for 3 or 4 nights. Drop back down through the icefall and rest. Back up through the icefall, Camp 1, Camp 2, 1 night at Camp 3, drop all the way back down to base camp and rest. Finally, we spend 2 weeks resting in base camp before our final summit push, taking us all the way up to Camp 4 onto the summit. So it's not an easy job. It's 2 months on the mountain. There's no immediate return on Everest.